This video will show you how to use the attribute mapping feature, which is available in the X.commerce integration pack. There are many types of channels that merchants want to publish their products to. Sales channels, such as eBay, as well as marketing and advertising channels. The problem is, to publish products to a channel, you need to map the products to the required attributes for that channel. Each channel has its own set of required attributes, which can change over time. Keeping up with the requirements for each channel is time-consuming and can be a frustrating process. The solution is X.commerce attribute mapping. Attribute mapping is a single-source way to describe your products to multiple channels. X.commerce maintains the mapping of the X.commerce attributes to the attributes of the various channels. This means you map your Magento attributes to the X.commerce attributes once. Now your products are set up to easily reach multiple advertising, sales, and marketing channels as they become available on X.commerce. There are two steps to mapping attributes. You need to map the Magento attribute set to an X.commerce attribute set. Then, map the attributes and their values within a set. The attribute mapping feature is accessed by navigating to Catalog, Attributes, Manage Attribute Mapping. This action displays the Manage Attribute Mapping page, which gives you an overview of your attribute mappings. You will notice a table containing 4 columns on this page. The first is the Magento Attribute Set column. This column lists all your Magento attribute sets. The next column is the X.commerce Attribute Set column. This lists the X.commerce attribute set that has been mapped to the Magento attribute set. If the Magento attribute set has not been mapped, it displays unmapped. For example, we see that the attribute set Shoes Him is mapped to the X.commerce attribute set Min Shoes Casual. The Required Attributes column shows the percentage of the required attributes within each set that have already been mapped. Here we can see that Sport Equipment is completely mapped and that Shirts Him and Shoes Him are partially mapped. The Magento attribute set Shoes Her has been mapped to the X.commerce attribute set Women's Shoes Flats, but shows 0% mapped. This is because even though the Magento attribute set was mapped, none of the X.commerce required attributes within that set have been mapped. The last column is the Actions column. This contains links that let you begin the mapping of the attribute set using the Map Now link, view and edit the mappings using the Manage link, remove all the mappings for a set using the Clear link. Now we'll map the Shirts Her attribute set. To map this attribute set, you click on the Map Now link for Shirts Her. The attribute set mapping page appears. On the attribute set mapping page, we will map this set to an X.commerce attribute set. The easiest way to find the X.commerce attribute set is to use the Quick Search field. In this field, you enter a keyword for the set you are mapping. We are mapping Shirts Her, so I'll enter shirt. A list of X.commerce attributes containing the word shirt appears. I'm going to choose women's t-shirts. Next, you need to decide if you want to use the Auto Map feature. This option automatically maps Magento attribute labels to X.commerce attribute labels using case-insensitive matching. Since I can always change the mapping if needed, I'm going to leave this option on. Clicking Continue performs the mapping and opens the Attribute and Value Mappings page. Here we can see that the Shirts Her attribute set has 2 X.commerce attributes that need mapping: size and size type. Before we map these, let's see what attributes are mapped. To see the mapped attributes, click on the Map tab. Now we can see that the Magento attributes brand, condition, material, and style were automatically mapped using the label matching. The attribute shirt color has been mapped to color. This means this mapping was done in another attribute set. When you map an attribute that is shared by more than one attribute set, that mapping is retained. This means you only need to map any attribute once. Now let's go back to the unmapped list. Here we can see that we need to map the required attribute size and size type. Hovering over an attribute shows you the values associated with the attribute. Notice that the values of the Magento attribute size t-shirt and the X.commerce attribute size are different. The X.commerce values are the recommended values for the attribute. You use these values to map to the Magento values. To map these two attributes, we select each attribute. The attributes value mapping panel appears. Notice the Magento values are listed and need to be mapped to X.commerce values. When selecting values from a long list, you can type to search the list. I'll click in the small drop-down box. Type in S. The list navigates to S. This is what I need, so I will press return. I'll use the same method to map medium and large. After you have all the values mapped, click Save Mapping. The Magento attribute is moved to the Map tab along with its mapping. We'll go back to the Unmapped tab. All we have left is one required attribute, size type. There isn't a Magento attribute appropriate for this, so we'll need to create one in Magento. This is easy. Simply click on the plus icon for size type, choose the default value, decide if you'd like to apply the default to all the items in the set, and click Create. When we look at the Map tab, you can see there is now a Magento attribute called Women's T-shirt Size Type, mapped to size type. The attribute name is created by combining the X.commerce attribute set name and the attribute name. Looking at the Unmapped tab, we can see that the last Magento attribute is embellishment. If I hover over embellishment, we can see the values associated with the attribute. This attribute does help describe the product, so I want to map this. However, this doesn't map to any of the X.commerce attributes. In this case, we'll use the X.commerce custom attribute. I'll select embellishment and custom attribute and click Save Mapping. When you map a Magento attribute to an X.commerce custom attribute, the Magento attribute name and all its associated values all retain their names and are simply passed through as is. When you look at the map list, you will see this mapping. Now let's go back to the Manage Attribute Mappings page. You can see that the Shirts Her attribute is now 100% mapped. Next, I'll show you how to change the mappings. If you need to review or change any mappings, click Manage. I'll click the Manage link for Shirts Her. This brings you to the Attribute and Value Mapping page for that mapping. Next, you will click on the Maps tab to look at the attribute you wish to review. In this case, I'm going to choose Condition. You use the Attribute Value Mapping panel to set, edit, and clear the value mappings. Clicking the Clear All link would remove all the current attribute value mappings for the condition attribute. Looking at these values, I see I don't move all the mappings, but I do want to change the mapping of the Magento value New. To do this, I click Clear, then select a new value. I'm going to select New without tags from the drop-down and click Update Mapping. To verify the change, all I need to do is click on Condition again. We can see that the value has been changed. What we just did was changing the mapping of a value. If you want to change the mapping of an attribute, click on the attribute. I'm going to choose Style. To remove the mapping, click the Clear Mapping button. A message box appears asking for confirmation of the action and tells you that the attribute and value mappings will be removed. Click OK to clear the mapping. If we click the Unmapped tab, we see both the Magento style attribute and the X.commerce style attributes are listed. If you want to change the mapping of an attribute set, you use the Manage Attribute Mapping page. Since attributes and their values are part of an attribute set, to change the mapping of a set, you first remove all the mappings. The Clear link removes all the mappings for a set. Then the attribute set is ready to be mapped again. This concludes the demonstration of how to perform attribute mapping. For more information, please click the link below.